Hey, Joel, if you've been paying attention to the last couple of microcasts that we've produced, we've been really focusing on refundings these days because interest rates are at historic lows. As we've discussed in previous episodes, the federal tax law changed in 2017, so advance refundings can no longer be done on a tax-exempt basis, but that hasn't stopped people. As we've discussed, there's really three ways that issuers have been taking advantage of the low interest rates. They've been issuing bonds on a taxable basis, or they've been entering into forward delivery contracts, which basically means, they sign a deal, but the deal actually doesn't really close until they can get within that 90 days of the current refunding window allowed under the tax law. And we also have addressed Cinderella bonds, but we really didn't get into Cinderella bonds very much. So Joel, can you tell us what that actually means?
And Cinderella bonds are they differ a little bit from the forward delivery bonds kind of fundamentally, in that forward delivery bonds are sold kind of on a current basis. They're sold on day one, but they don't actually get issued until some point in the future, at which point they begin to accrue interest. All of that interest is tax exempt, and you go forward like a normal bond issue. A Cinderella bond is a little bit different in that a bond is in fact issued on day one, but it's a taxable bond because we are outside of that 90-day refunding window. So we're not within 90 days of the date that the refunded bonds can be called. So we can't issue tax-exempt refunding bonds. So instead, we issue taxable refunding bonds, with the concept being that once we get within that 90-day windows, whether that's a year from now, 2 years from now, 7 years from now, however long that period of time may be, once we're within 90 days of the date that the refunded bonds can be retired or redeemed, then there will be a conversion of some sort. The Cinderella will occur, and all of a sudden the taxable bonds will become tax-exempt bonds.
I actually want to address that point. They don't all of a sudden become tax-exempt bonds, right? Because you still need the same things that you would need in a tax-exempt deal. You would need a tax certificate. Bond counsel would need to give a tax opinion. And what I like to see on the transactions that I work on, and I'm hoping that this is happening out there, is that taxable bond actually gets brought back into the issuer or the trustee, and then a new tax-exempt bond is issued. So I just wanted to address that magical conversion. It's not magical, correct?
That's absolutely right. And actually, that's really some of the controversy surrounding this sort of a structure. For tax purposes, there has to be a reissuance that occurs on that conversion date, for lack of a better term. So in other words, unless a reissuance occurs, then we're kind of left with the issue date of the taxable bonds being the issue date of the bonds as a whole, in which case we could have a problem on the tax side because taxable bonds were issued a significant amount more than 90 days before the call date of the refunded bonds. And so for tax purposes, in order for that structure to work, there has to be a reissuance. So we basically, to your point, Rudy, you're right, we need to exchange the taxable bonds for tax-exempt bonds. And there's a lot of disagreement about how that is effectuated. How do you force a conversion to occur? We have regulations governing the reissuance of an outstanding debt obligation. And so there are steps that can be taken to try and encourage a reissuance of the obligation, but there's a lot of controversy surrounding how certain you can be that that conversion will in fact result in the reissuance of the bonds for tax purposes.
If federal legislation goes through and advance refundings come back, is it your opinion and expectation that the Cinderella bond structure will go away?
It's a good question. And the Cinderella structure as well as the forward delivery structure, those aren't brand new since advance refundings were eliminated in 2017, because we were always subject to the one bite at the apple. If you listen to the advance refunding podcast, you could only advance refund once. So once you had done that, you couldn't do it again, and you would avail yourself of one of these types of options. So no, I don't think they'll go away, but as anyone who's practiced prior to that 2017 Jobs Act knows, they were exceedingly rare. Typically, one bite at the apple was all that was necessary to really maximize debt service savings through a refunding. And so I expect if advance refundings do come back in their prior form, where we're allowed one advance refunding, then I expect that, again, Cinderella bonds and forward delivery bonds will become exceedingly rare, just like they were in the past.